WHIV LPFM in New Orleans. We are Radio Null HIV with programming. That's right, programming dedicated to human rights and social justice. WHIVFM.org. We honor independent voices. We are not a radio station mission. No, we are a mission with a radio station. And welcome to the NoiseFilter, the weekly hour-long streamcast that I do with my good friend and yours, sitting across the digital divide. Say hello, Doc Griggs.
Hello, Doc Griggs.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Long day, as usual, but good.
Long day. It's true that. We both did media today at 11:30, so let's talk about yours first, and then we'll talk about mine. How did yours go?
It went well. We talked about probably everything that we'll talk about today, including masking and the new mask mandate, which is good.
Right. God, I forgot to put that on there. God, thank you for reminding me. I guess it's not coming up in the deck.
Yeah.
I didn't put it in the rundown. So let's do it now. So talk to us about the new mask mandate. It went into effect today.
6 o'clock this morning here in New Orleans, we have an indoor mask mandate. Yeah.
A little later than we would have wanted, expected, thought, what have you, but at least it's done, right? We've got it.
It's done.
So, cool. And then anything else?
Yeah. I mean, we just talked about more of the Omicron, potentially how precipitously this thing will go away,
Right.
impact on the hospital system, healthcare systems, and we'll get to that. I mean, it's very realistic that in some parts of the country, you're going to see hospital systems, healthcare systems break. It's a concept that sounds as crazy as it sounds coming out of my mouth. Literally, you're going to see them break in a very high-resourced country.
Absolutely. And it is something to be concerned about. And I think I talk about that. I feel like I talked about it with you, that there's a website and that looks at, and I've been meaning to send it to you, that looks at how sustainable a hospital system is in the state, like, and how close to the brinks of collapse are they on. So
It's scary.
It is scary. But as we go through our comments here before we get started, hello, Doc Griggs. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
I wish I can curse, but I can't. And today I was on the Majority Report, so thank you for that plug. So for anybody who is interested, here is the link for the Majority Report. It's I just posted it, and if you could leave a comment or something along those lines, those always help as I enjoy being called back to the Majority Report. So thank you. I thought it went well, no major guffaws. So I'm always happy to be done with something without any major guffaws. Katie, hello. Katie's dialing from the UK. If you're so interested in hopping on and giving us a bird's eye view of what's happening in the UK, we would love to have you. Hello, Sharpie.
Love to hear that.
Absolutely. Hello, Mignon. Hi, Docs. And yes, mask mandate. 100% agree. So happy that we have it back. Really, it's the most important thing. The numbers that we're going to start seeing here in a moment, including the fact that that I think that we've peaked out. So, and to a certain degree, yeah, I mean, I hear you, Sharky. That is not a bad point. That's not something I necessarily disagree with. I wish that it obviously had been done earlier, as I said. So
we got it done.
Yes, I'm glad we got done. It's over. So now it's time for us to move on and enjoy mask mandate. Know that people are going to hopefully be masking indoors and being really good about it. What does that mean for you in Mardi Gras balls, Eric? Are you going to be attending Mardi Gras balls?
No, I'm not going. I don't plan to go to them.
Are you going to go to any?
I don't.
Are you going to parades?
I don't.
Eric, you and I have some Mardi Gras traditions that we haven't done in a little bit of time.
Do them virtually.
Okay, we're doing them virtually. Okay.
Yeah, we'll look at. I just want to look at the numbers.
Okay. Fair enough. And I also want to say hello to Margaret Fidelic, who's calling us from Canada. Thank you so much for tuning in. Margaret, it is a pleasure. Okay. Here's a first question here. Will there be a fourth dose? I do not know. Not anytime soon, but I think at some point in the future-ish, yes, I think that we will see a fourth dose. So that is something that I've always said was going to be something along the lines of what a like kind of like a flu
3-shot series kind of, and maybe a booster. Yeah,
and then a booster. That kind of what I think is going to happen to us moving forward.
That actually brings up something that we talked about on Graham today. It's vaccine fatigue.
Right.
I know I'm being approached a lot of people like that. I'm tired of these shots. I'm not taking any more shots.
Right.
I'm done with this. I'll just y'all get it right and take one a year if that needs to be updated. But I'm not taking a shot every 3 to 4 months, which is it's a discussion. It's an uncomfortable discussion and needs to find out what would be the most practical way to implement what might be needed moving forward, because it's getting to a point where I'm hearing people are getting tired of everything COVID, like everything.
Right. I mean, even listening to the show, quite frankly. Right. I mean, like, just being completely honest here. So I hear you. Listen, we're all tired of it. Nobody wants this anymore, right? But like, this is the situation that we're in. I mean, like, what do you like? Are you tired of gravity? Are you tired of the sky being blue? Like, are you tired that the sun goes down every day and the moon comes out? Like, this is just. Are you tired of the Earth being round? Like,
yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand that level. Like, is there just like a fundamental not understanding of like this, or maybe that I'm just an infectious disease doctor and I think about this too much? Like, this is just life. This is reality. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's science. It's science. It's reality. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm reading some of my comments.
I wish that people would understand that. And thank you, Jordan. I appreciate you watching on the Majority Report today. I found my original baby vax card. I was given the polio vax 5 times within the first few years. So another vaccine is nothing. That's so cool. Yeah. So, hey, Katie, I just tried to email you. I don't, for some reason, I could not bring up your email. If you just send me a quick email, that'd be great. And then I'll just send back an invite back here. Johnny Angel, my good friend, says we live with all that MA, just like we all live with COVID. 100%. I guess my comment is that people are just constantly just saying that they're tired. And it's just, listen, COVID isn't going anywhere. Influenza, 100 years later, still here after 1918. And it's the same strain. It's the same virus. Obviously, there's phylogenetic mutations and what have you. You know, there's family trees. It's not the exact same virus from 1980, but it's an H1N1 organism, and there's multiple, hundreds of different influenza viruses that we have. We still have one from 1918 circulating amongst humans today. If you get an influenza vaccine every year, you get that H1N1 from 1918 there. So, like, COVID is here. COVID isn't coming. Like, it's just a matter of us changing our minds about it. Eric, let me let the cat out real quickly. That thought, will you? Yeah.
Did you read the text that I sent you in the chat?
Yeah. Let me see. So it came up. No, it's the texts aren't coming out. They're coming out as your name. Oh, sorry. You are frozen. Ask if they can see you. Can you guys see me moving? Am I frozen? Was that the text you sent there?
Yes.
Got it. Is there can you guys see me? Am I moving? Am I moving to you, Eric?
No, you're frozen.
What do we do? How do we deal with this?
Your audio is coming through great.
Okay.
Katie sent a Facebook message.
All right. Breaking up really bad. You're all jumpy. All right. Well, sound is breaking up bad. Well, hopefully the internet gets better. I don't think we bought the best internet package that we had. Usually this is Eric's problem. I usually never have this problem.
No, dude, I got my booster. I'm good.
Sorry. Hopefully it'll get better. All right, Eric. Do you need to do anything else, or you want to get started, or what?
Yeah, let's rock and roll. I just hope. Yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's push through.
Okay, I say let's push through this and we'll figure it out. We're some things I definitely have to do change. We are live no longer at 4:00, but at 6:00. So we'll definitely I need to go in and change.
Oh, that's a great point. Is your phone on Wi-Fi? Thanks, Mark. Is your phone
my
on your?
phone? Yeah, I'll take it off Wi-Fi.
Because right now that's
all right. I took it off Wi-Fi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I see a black screen, and you're still frozen in a still.
Oh, so you can't see the
there it
screen
is.
right now.
Now we're good. We can see it now.
All right, great. Awesome. Great. Yeah, take your phone off Wi-Fi. Yep, absolutely. Real quickly here, Eric, an unmasked, fully vaccinated person can not only transmit the COVID, but capable of variants. I think the part of that is probably true. It's not probably true. Can transmit COVID virus. So you can, and you also can transmit. That part I do not think is.
Well, no.
True.
Let's talk through that, right? If an unmasked, fully vaccinated person becomes infected with COVID, if it replicates in a million times, the chance that there could be a mutation is possible, right? Anytime there's replication, there's a chance for a mutation. Now, I don't know about breeding a new. When we talked about, can't believe I'm about to say this. When we talked almost a year and a half ago, or a couple of years ago, it seems almost, about the immune compromised. Remember that one patient, I think it was Colorado, that bred all these different variants because they were immune compromised? Remember that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not quite that case. But once a virus gets in and someone's infected, every time it replicates, there's a chance for another mutation to happen. I don't know if it would be in high enough quantities to make a new variant of significance, but I mean, I know the mutations can happen anytime it's replicating.
100%. Anytime there's replication, or some mutation or something happen, replicates this. But whether or not it replicates the point of a is very difficult to say. The message, the internet was weak, and Eric. So hopefully we're going to. So if you are, the other critical importance that we see more of these variations or these emerge from people who are immunocompromised. So if somebody is immunized, in other words, they're probably not vaccinated, so there's no antibody, and their body's not generate antibodies to infect. That's when we're seeing variants emerge. Eric, the other thing that is too is that they're saying that, remember, these variants also transfer as well. Animals infected, they could generate their own variants and reinfect population again. So there could be, back and forth. We don't know where Omicron could have come. They say, well, it may have emerged from somebody with HIV or end-stage HIV, which we used to call AIDS, that sort of stuff. It could be. Or there's nothing to say that it may not have, intermittently transferred into some sort of animal, some other animal that could have created a variant, and then it went back to humans. This is why we will never see the end of COVID. COVID will always be with us because it has animal reservoirs. And as long as there's animal reservoirs, you are going to see a virus that's going to continually live and bounce between humans and animals. And that's just the way it is. What we need to do is ultimately hope that this virus becomes endemic. What does that mean? By being endemic, that means it can sustain itself in a human population without killing its host. Eric, any thoughts? Or?
No, I mean, I absolutely agree. I have no, you nailed it. I mean, that's, yeah. I mean, I didn't think about, the fact that it had, I think, what is the lions at the zoo here tested positive? Right. And we've had, you've heard about tigers. I think other cats at one point did. Remember there was a time we were worried about
the minks.
Yep, the minks.
Right. There was a big mink outbreak.
Yeah.
In like Norway or something.
Something odd. Yeah, and it was sad because they unfortunately euthanized like 300 or so. It was like a bunch of them. It was sad.
Yeah, absolutely. It was super, super sad.
Not like they were being bred to be pets, but
right.
Yeah. That all of those parts.
Devastatingly good point, as usual.
So I have a question on this end though, Mark Allen, and I actually need help with. Like, so for people that got monoclonal antibodies and they're having, the requirement to go back to work to be vaccinated or boosted, like, is there a letter that they get? Is that how do you?
You mean they're saying that they have?
Let's say someone got infected and they got the monoclonal antibodies. For 90 days, they can't be vaccinated or boosted. Is there a template letter for them to go to work, or how does that work?
Not that I'm aware of. Not at all. But it is a good point. But you can show that you're negative through text. Yeah, when you live in Europe, all the countries are not blurred and merged into one, right?
And Mark Allen and I can't tell you where Arkansas is. Well, I can't. I'm horrible with geography right now.
If you can tell, Arkansas is right above us.
Well, there you go. Now I can tell you where Arkansas is.
I think this is a great point. COVID messaging from the federal level are confusing the public. Johnny, 100%. No question about it.
Give him a mic drop, bro.
Right. Yeah, here we go. I would 100% obviously agree with you. It has been terrible. It's been terrible from the beginning. I was hoping that it was going to get better at some point. It did not. Unfortunately, that's the case. And I don't know what you mean by this, the Scarlet Letter.
She's saying the letter, it's a joke.
Oh,
a letter to go back to work if you've been a Scarlet Letter?
I got it. Okay.
That's all right, Johnny. I got you. I was with you.
All right. So it is a pleasure to bring on. We have a surprise. And it's a pleasure to bring on and to see somebody I have not seen in a long time. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Katie Moylan, who is she's going to have to introduce herself in a moment. She's an academic professor at the University of Leicester, right? Leicester. And Katie is specializes in community radio and does a lot of academic research, especially I think what is it fair to say? Is it American community radio or just global community radio?
It edged into North America, which is when I met you in New Orleans, 5 years ago. Yikes, 6. It started with, I looked at it in Ireland, I looked at it a little bit in Britain, and then I started looking at it in the US, and then I was looking at Indigenous radio for almost 2 years in the US, and now I'm back here.
Great. Well, I know that the world is going to benefit greatly from your research. And of course, we are radio, so we love having anybody who loves radio and does research on radio. Of course, we are partially and biased in that direction. But we are not here to talk about radio today, Katie. We are here to talk about what is your perspective of what's happening with COVID in the UK. And I know it's late there tonight. It must be like 2 a.m. So thanking up and agreeing to be on.
That's okay. It's actually only midnight, so but
Okay.
it's odd to be up at midnight and not be somehow socializing. So that's unusual. Yeah, I mean, anything I can offer is just anecdotal, just kind of like what everyday life is like. So maybe if you want to fire specific questions, but somebody made a comment a minute ago about the really poor messaging, and of course that's been true here in the UK as well around COVID and around guidelines. One thing I suppose I could start by saying what I mentioned last week, which is what we did have in the UK across both England, Scotland, but also Wales, Northern Ireland, is we had free tests distributed.
Yes, that's
which
huge.
It comes from the past history of socialized medicine here, so it is huge. It has its problems, but yeah, and we could start talking about that. But it does mean we had a culture of regular testing. And you could get them fairly easily. You could go by the NHS website and get them sent to your house, which is amazing. And then you could also go to your local pharmacy, your drugstore. I was getting, therefore, tested. I tested myself about twice a week because I'm teaching face-to-face university students. And so parents are testing a lot, for instance. But it is good that we had that.
So Katie, are you just able to walk in and just like there's boxes and you can just grab a few and take them, or do you have to show your NHS card?
Yeah, how's that work?
Are you limited to what you can do? Like, how does it work?
Right. Because I don't drive, and because I've basically been trying to stay away from going into shops or pharmacies whenever possible, just as a rule of thumb. And also until around mid-December, people weren't masking. There wasn't a mandate. So I was getting them sent to my home. A lot of people do that. The website is fairly intuitive, although there's always conversations, and this probably came up with your vaccinations there in the US. You know, how savvy do you have to be online to access this stuff? And that's another question, right? But it was pretty straightforward to get them sent to your home once you figured out how to navigate the NHS website. It took 3 days. You know, they went through your post box, so you didn't even have to be home, and that is an amazing thing. But if you wanted to go to a pharmacy, what they started doing is asking for a code, so you couldn't just walk in and take them off the shelves, but you had to show a code. But most pharmacies had them in stock. The only problem is they ran out around Christmas. It has been amazing, yeah.
Of course. And do you think that's responsible for, because right now we don't usually show the UK data, but I am aware that I think the peaking is happening right now. And do you think that perhaps that people were responsible with making sure that if they tested and they tested negative, that they stayed away from crowds, and then therefore this is why we're starting to see a little bit of a dip?
Oh, I don't know. You guys are more optimistic than me. Comparatively, I do appreciate that the test provision here is an extraordinary thing, and I still am very grateful for that. But as everyone I know, particularly parents who are testing a lot with their kids in school. However, the culture, though, has kind of grown around it. So people are absolutely taking the tests as read. So what a lot of people were doing was taking tests before socializing. I do that myself. Although I socialize kind of very little, but yeah, I mean, basically, so people were taking tests and using them. It's like, okay, a permission slip. And there's been some criticism about this because the thing about the lateral flow tests, as you discussed last week, you guys, they're not always accurate.
On the front end.
People, right. And yes, I mean, the anecdotal stuff I hear time and again from friends, and I will say this, all of my friends, people I'd consider good friends here, all of them except for one, COVID or had it over Christmas or have had it twice. And these are people who are being careful. And these are all people who are vaccinated and boosted by now.
Mark Allen, I'm going to ask you publicly on air in front of company, can you send me that graph?
That graph?
Today. Can you send it to me so I can use
Yes.
It's not. It's anecdotal. It's the opposite. I have no graphs. I'm sorry.
No. Can you not see the graph that's on the screen right now?
Oh, sure.
Yes, that's
the
graph.
Last week and I
That's
forgot
the
to ask
graph
for it
that
again.
he's talking about.
Yeah. Can you send me that, please?
I will. So the reason why I'm showing
I do. I remember this now. Sorry, I was too busy trying to focus. Sorry.
Okay. So for those of you that were here last last week or that did not see the Sam Cedar show, I showed this on the Sam Cedar show today as well. So this is the day that you're exposed. You can see about 24 hours later, you start generating a viral load. And you're infectious. It depends on who you ask. Maybe day 7, maybe day 12, 13, 14. It depends. It depends on the virus. This is really for any respiratory virus. It's really for any virus, really, quite frankly. But right now, let's just talk about COVID. So you can see that the PCR is going to be positive longer period of time because it needs a much less viral load to become positive. Whereas
it's more sensitive.
Yes, more sensitive. Right. Whereas the lateral flow test, also called antigen test, also called rapid test, also called at-home test, okay? They're all done by a technology called lateral flow. You need to have a higher viral load, and it only detects it for a shorter period of time. So this is the reason why you have people who say, hey, I'm boosted, I'm vaccinated, I'm boosted, I tested positive by PCR because your viral load was somewhere here, but negative by antigen test because your viral load wasn't here. And those people that we're seeing that on people who are boosted, vaccinated, and boosted.
So if I can just make a point here, but what the lateral flow test actually tests for, if you want to put it in practical terms, is for infectiousness or contagiousness. If you can pull it up, Mark Allen, if you could pull it back up. If I'm not mistaken, in the UK, the quarantine is actually 7 days, and then is it 2 negative tests before you're able to test out of quarantine, or what's the Katie?
I think they're trying very hard to move it back to 5, and I think it's just 1 test, but that I don't know because that is not something I'm practicing. I should have called that data up for you guys. Sorry, but basically,
that's okay. But Katie, look at where you are at 5 days. You're
right.
Still,
you're at peak viral load.
It is. See, Johnny Angel is correct. This is the stuff that's confusing, right? If this is what we have at peak infectiousness or just 24 hours of peak infectiousness, why are we letting people out? It doesn't make any sense. It's very confusing.
The graphs the CDC is using, they're saying 31% of people are still infected. You have a third that are still infectious at day 5, as opposed to day 7 where it drops to 16%. But no matter what, test out. This shows clearly the value of the lateral flow test on the back end as opposed to the front end. The sensitivity, it's the same thing that made it a bad guy at the beginning makes it a great tool at the end. If that makes no sense.
Absolutely. So,
and the reason why, Mark Allen, you want to tell them why you're going to test positive after day 7 with PCR?
Yeah, I mean, after day 7, when you're testing, now this says infectious period. I think it's a little bit longer. But why are you testing positive after there's no more live virus? Is that what the PCR is picking up on is not live virus, like what Doc Griggs was saying, like what you see with lateral flow. What you're actually picking up on is viral particles. So just kind of the remnants of a virus. Think about a car crash and it just scatters parts all over the interstate, right? That's kind of what happens after the virus, stops being live. You now have all this debris. Think about a party, one of your high school ragers, right? Where you just completely trash the house. The post-party effect of the virus is all that debris.
Is your dad on today?
No, my dad is not. That was never a thing at the. We never had a rager.
Yeah, nobody
went. Dude, nobody went to the Moroccans' house to have fun. Okay, like the Moroccan Jews were not they were not the fun ones, I was fun, my brother was, but certainly not our household.
I'm gonna hit you with a line that only you'll find funny. Sure, bud.
We were the immigrants in the community. Okay?
Sure, bud.
I feel like flashbacks from all those 80s and 90s movies about high school students partying.
Right. I'll be able to play the bass tonight, right? Sure, bud.
Eric is giving you guys a little preview into our next animation. I guess we might as well take a moment here. If you guys are tuned in, this is 102.3 WHI Eric and I will be releasing our 8th,
Wow.
9th, 7th animation.
I don't know.
That is about clinical trials. Will be coming out at the end of the month. And it is kind of talking about what clinical trials are, and we look specifically at the structural racism that has been embedded in medicine for the last couple hundred years. We talk about that as well. The whole animation stars the amazing Irma Thomas. So you guys are going to see me and Eric play Thomas's band. Did Eric and I write parts that we were musicians in Irma Thomas? Maybe we did. And does Eric rap? Did he get it down in 2 takes? Does he rap in the middle of it, explaining how clinical trial works? And he got it down in 2 takes, sitting right next to Irma Thomas.
Yeah.
No freaking out, no nothing. He's like, yeah, I'm going to sing in front of Irma Thomas. Watch me do this.
Yeah. Let's just say I watched a lot of Hamilton.
Was Irma Thomas the consummate professional?
Absolutely.
And was she schooling us?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, Kate, do you want to sit on and watch the rest of the
I have
the
a
rest of
quick
the show with us?
question for Kate. Kate, I'm sure from across the pond, you've been watching the madness that we've been experiencing just in the community, the pushback. I haven't, maybe because I've been inundated with dealing with what we're dealing with here. What has been the sentiment of the community over there? Is there the pushback against COVID? We're dealing with the politicization and the vilification of science, and now it's being put on the second priority to the economy. I'm just curious.
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely been a second priority. Public health has been a second priority to the economy, absolutely, kind of throughout. I don't think we have the extremes that you have in a lot of places in the U.S. where the anti-vax sentiment, from what I'm reading, and the anti-science, it can have a kind of religious tone sometimes over there. I believe, I think it's much more pronounced there, but it is bad here amongst those who don't believe in wearing masks. They don't use the freedom discourse in the same way, but they still follow that, like, you can't tell me what to do idea. But more than that, government policy has foregrounded economic recovery throughout, but really kind of most pointedly this year when our restrictions were lifted this summer prematurely. And there's this tiny window, I think everyone had this, right? Before Delta came along, and we thought we were safer. But they kept,
The roaring 20s here.
Right. Yeah. Well, or the mythology. Yeah. So we're all just anyway. But yes, they've pushed the economy throughout. They haven't really enforced mask wearing in shops. They've encouraged people to go back to restaurants and pubs. So, like, for instance, I would look at my students, and we as a university request that they wear masks, but we cannot insist until, say, mid-December, when they did bring the mask mandate back in. But before that, we didn't have a leg to stand on. So we're asking them to mask up in the classrooms. We're wearing masks. And then they walk out and they see people hanging out indoors. And just double that, that's happening all over the country. There are people masking, and then there are people not masking. And the two are like, people are on one side or the other. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's like that a lot of places. People are either believers or they're not. But
yeah,
being
my
safe.
buddy, so our producer who does the production, who's the third leg in the NoiseFilter school, that is our animation side of the company.
Who happens to be a public health practitioner, by the way. He's public health.
Yeah, public health practitioner. Lives in LA, but went to Florida with his girlfriend to go to her parents' home. And he was telling me, he's like, dude, I went from like everybody's masked, everybody's social distant, everybody, like, the presence of COVID is just persistently in the air. Good. It's like that here in New Orleans. He says he went to Florida. He's like, COVID doesn't even exist. Nobody's masked. Nobody's doing anything. Restaurants are packed, and so, yeah.
What's crazy is how that's playing out in continental Europe is like, I mean, in Ireland, I was there. I got to visit my family in the summer, and people were being much more careful. I also got to go to Portugal, and people were wearing masks not just outside in all restaurants, but at the beach. Like the freshest
I was in Portugal. I was in Portugal in October for an HIV conference, and the only reason I went was because it was like 95% vaccination rates, 98% masking rates. I felt very, very comfortable there.
Right? I mean, I just felt reassured by everyone around me. It was wonderful. Right. But also then you have the Netherlands, and this is anecdotal because my sister lives in the Netherlands and a very good friend lives in Denmark. So these are countries that you think are very socially progressive. And in terms of healthcare provision, they are. But on the ground, they've got this kind of libertarian vibe happening with a lot of people, like smart people who you would think would know better. And they're like, well, come on, let's just get back to normal. And I feel this normalcy discourse is so pervasive and really hard to deny, because if you say, oh, I don't want to get back to normal, what does that make you? There's a really insidious way of framing this kind of like, what's wrong with you, you loser, you know? And it's interesting that's playing out in Netherlands and Denmark. You showed that graph last week, and I saw that number go right up. And that's because Denmark, like a lot of places, they like celebrating their New Year's Eve socially, you know? And so I think that what happened there is that's the fallout there. But anecdotal.
And that's Central Europe. Now let's move over to Eastern Europe. And Eastern Europe is a very, very different. There's strong religious sentiments there, thoughts about vaccines that I heard that because of potential fetal tissue and some of the mRNA, some early mRNA iterations of the vaccines. Then there was in the producer of the podcast, so the podcast arm of NoiseFilter, his name was Graham, and was in the country of Georgia. And in Georgia, in one of our morning pitch calls, he said that a really kind of well-known healthcare worker, nurse, got her vaccine live on TV, like we've seen a lot of healthcare workers do that here. I'm sure they did it in the UK as well. And then she died 2 days later of completely unrelated causes. But it spooked right? Like it was an incredible, like horrible coincidence. And it just spooked the country of Georgia. And then after that, you know, so there was Graham, I gave Graham a couple days on the podcast to interview some folks, and he did. It was really interesting to hear Georgians talk about the hesitation with the vaccines. It was really fascinating.
So that's a great pivot though. So look at John. If you look at Johnny's comment, I mean, there's several about Australia, and then we can talk about that. I mean, so the football games over in the UK, are there spikes after games, or are people mad? It's just, I don't know what you're experiencing there. But football apparently is one of the foundations of our country here. It's a priority here, apparently.
Well, I'm sure so is UK or Europe.
Well, that's what I was asking. I was asking, like, they get on principle. Like, what's been the vibe?
I mean, they are wearing masks. Some people are. Sometimes I see footage of people who aren't wearing masks, and then I think back to like even Wimbledon in the summer, where maybe I want to say 2/3 of people were watching or I was watching on TV. Sorry, were wearing masks. Yeah. I haven't heard of spikes of that. I think what was more concerning, I mean, how can you decide what's more concerning, is that nightclubs were like enthusiastically reopened without a mask mandate. So what they did instead is they did testing, and I think they're doing that for football games as well. Football, of course, being soccer football, right? But
soccer, right, of course.
Yeah. I forget to say it that myself, but I know that football is huge there in the US, so I'm not going to conflate that because they are different games. But yeah, so a lot of venues for any mass events are requiring testing before you go in, which is something. But the nightclub thing, I feel like that's just so scary. And I miss nightclubs, believe you me. But that's like I went to a party in September and there was dancing. And I wore a mask the whole time and I still got a cold. Anyway, I'm just saying, It's not a good place to be safe.
Absolutely. So, and just real quickly, just to answer this question, these games are outside, Johnny. For ones that are inside, I'm not aware. I'm not sure why we're not seeing these. I am certain you are seeing increase, especially like the 2 Saints games that we had. I'd be shocked if there was no transmission of virus. I'm sure there is. It's just hard to measure. And the rundown, which we'll get to next week, we'll talk about cases being difficult to detect, largely because these are all on antigen tests. And there's, like I just showed you in the graph, it's hard to measure these. And you're seeing people who are asymptomatically infected, especially those who are either boosted, and maybe even people who had natural immunity secondary to being infected with COVID. There's some level of immunity. And fortunately, Omicron is just a less virulent organism.
And practically speaking, no one will give me names, but I've heard of people, because you're trusting people with the results of a home test, that they're going out anyway. And the messaging has been so confusing. Well, I'm just going to go out with my mask anyway. Like, I know people that have been at work with people that they didn't quarantine. Oh, I tested positive, but I'm good. When did you test positive? This morning. What? It's when you confuse the messaging, and we trust people and we lead people to their own to make their own decisions, then it gets more complicated, I'll say.
Right. Absolutely.
I think that's so much of the problem. It's like people, I mean, then some people feel like they can't, stay home. They can't quarantine. I know people, they don't want to send their kids to school if they've tested positive, but then they're like, they're moral questions in a way, but the alternative is we police each other. And A, that won't work, not on an individual level, and B, it's awful, but it also won't work.
And then when the messaging is confusing from the top, they're just like, I'll do what I got to do to survive. Excuse me one second.
So one of the things that I was going to be in the rundown today was that you have Australia's most populous state reporting 92,000 new COVID cases. The reason is because they started including the rapid antigen test in official figures for the first time. I think Eric stepped away. It's too bad. I wanted him to see this. But how cool is, like, starting Wednesday, residents in New Wales were able to report the result of their rapid antigen test by uploading information on the app. Like, oh, right, technology. And technology works. And when people have technology, it's amazing what you can do with it, including being able to get on an app and report your positive antigen test. So I wanted Eric to see that, because he would have been amused by that. Real quick, we got to jump on, do some epi real quick. Anti-vaxxers are using Bob Seth, claiming that he's getting the booster was cause of death. Sharky. Yes, I don't even think we know what the cause of death is. Anytime somebody dies that's high profile like that, you have to give it time to figure out what the cause is. And it's not a booster. Boosters save lives. They don't take lives. Anybody otherwise is just not reflecting on reality. Mignon says, in June, Mexico City, everyone just talked about how everyone was masked and took it seriously, and we were told we didn't have vaccines yet. Yeah, I'm not 100% clear on that. All right, Eric, I'm gonna just jump. I had a bunch of cool things pulled out. We'll go over them next week, or if you want to do another show, we could do another show this week.
Well, let's ask folks. Do they want to see another show this week, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Let's populate the chat.
All right, here we are at 3 million. Wow, 314 million. Jeez, 590. 412,000 deaths are 5,524,086 new cases. Look at this. We added 2,846,532 new cases. And the deaths were 8,265. Now, if this number were like last year, where we were reporting like 100,000 or 600,000 global cases, remember how these numbers were so high? But again, the deaths are significantly down, as this graph will show you. That's largely due to the fact that we've just gotten a lot better with treating steroids, monoclonal antibodies, that sort of stuff. And again, this is global. But look at that. Look at the peak, dude. Like, look at
That's
that. Look at that. It's insane. It is the rate of change here is so steep. I obviously have never seen anything like this, because nothing in our lifetimes have ever been anything like this. But again, we were super concerned and started this show back here. Okay.
Yeah.
This is insane. And you know what, though? I will say this. We don't know. Like, we're looking at this and being like, okay, this can't get higher. But who knows? Maybe that goes here, and the next time it's way up here. You know, like, it is insane. 180% change. It's incredible. It's like nothing I've ever seen.
So Mark Allen, quickly address Johnny's comment real quick. Want to put that to bed?
Here, let me go back.
He says, so the vax and masks are not working. No, they are working, which is why you're seeing the number of deaths and you're seeing the number of hospitalizations. They're not in sync. Even though they're lagging indicators, they're nowhere near this peak. What you're seeing is an increase in infectivity or infectiousness.
Right.
And that's just the way it goes. And it's, again, it looks like Omicron understood the assignment and read the book on what viruses should do over time. We're just hoping, I don't know, but if this gets more infectious, I mean, we're already talking about shutting down healthcare systems. And there's no, I mean, it's kind of scary.
Right. So what we need to think about the vaccine as being is, and Johnny, this is geared specifically to you. The vaccine is like a seatbelt. Okay? The vaccine is like a seatbelt. A seatbelt isn't going to prevent you from getting in a car accident. But if you get in a car accident and you're wearing a seatbelt, it is going to limit the amount of damages or injuries that you are going to experience. A COVID vaccine is the same thing. It's not going to prevent you from getting COVID, right? The first Wuhan strain way back when, yes, maybe the mRNA vaccines may have prevented that. We are so far beyond that. We've known that because we're at the fourth variation out, okay? What the vaccine does, it limits the extent of injuries. In other words, the severity of disease. So let's just be very clear. And of course, masks work. That's like telling me that if I let go of this pen, it's not going to drop. Of course, it's going to drop. Masks and vaccines work. This just goes to show you how infectious this virus is. Thankfully, like Doc Griggs was saying, and like I will show you guys next week, there has been a decoupling of the mortality and hospitalization as a result of these vaccines. So they have been incredibly successful. Otherwise, I can assure you, we'd be in a completely different place right now. And I will show you evidence of this decoupling right here. I had it pulled. We'll try to pull it up here in a moment. But the idea of decoupling, again, is just like Eric was saying, not seeing the same level of hospitalizations. We're not seeing the same level of severity of illness. And again, this is largely due to vaccination that we're seeing. So now in some states here, what I'll show you guys next week is that the reason why we are not seeing the decoupling in the U.S. is because we're probably still dealing with Delta. Oh yeah, remember Delta? That's the other variant that's circulating. So we are not seeing that decoupling that you're seeing somewhere like, let's say, in the UK, that is seeing very, very high rates of cases, very low rates of hospitalizations and mortality. And that's largely because here in the US, we're still dealing with the Delta variant. All right. As we continue, and I just need to answer that. And yes, certain masks will help. Yes, for the Omicron variant, absolutely, and that's the KN95s or something like a KN95. Turkey says doctors never said it keeps you from getting COVID. These are right-wing talking points to scare and confuse masses. Again, Turkey, in the beginning, it did prevent, but not. We don't see it so much anymore. Thank you so much, Lance. I appreciate you watching the show today. Thank you. All right. So where are cases highest in the U.S.? Of course, they are in the Northeast, with Rhode Island for some reason just bearing the grunt of it. Fast. Oh no, this is still global. My apologies. So U.S. and Canada. My apologies. U.S. and Canada.
I was like,
wait,
where did he get Rhode Island out of Europe, Latin America, Middle
Right.
East?
I know. Dude, you know what? It's so funny. I've been at these graphs so much. I just saw Rhode Island, and then I was like, wait a second, where's the Rhode Island symbol? Anyway, you'll see Rhode Island in a second.
Katie, you see how challenged we are with our geography?
As you can see, we're starting to see a large part of South America light up. And I think that maybe, and Eric, I was wondering what your opinion was on that. I think that maybe due to possibly the fact that a lot of South America has the Sinovac, the Sinopharm, and the Sputnik vaccines. And what we've seen is that those vaccines have had poor efficacy toward the Omicron variant. So I'm just speculating here and wonder if what we're seeing here in South America is reflecting Sinopharm, Sinovac, and Sputnik vaccine. So, but we are seeing this light up more and more every day. And of course, what in Europe is just really incredibly surprising. Like Katie said, Scandinavian countries are all lighting up as well, which is, again, just somewhat surprising. All right, now we're here at the U.S. Dude, 63,390,876 cases or deaths, are rapidly approaching 864,000 deaths. We added 672,872 cases, with deaths being 2,173. So every day we're adding new numbers. I mean, again, here you see this huge spike as well. Now, we are seeing in the country, we are seeing these very high hospitalizations. And again, just to kind of talk called being coupled or decoupled. The reason why we are seeing this coupling of hospitalizations with COVID here in the U.S., whereas the rest of the world isn't, is that it's very likely that we're still dealing with Delta variant in some parts of the country. So, and that a guess?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I want to go back to real quick to the South America statement. Whether I don't know whether it's Sinovac or Sputnik, because whether or not you've been vaccinated, Omicron, if it's indeed Omicron, it can bypass. Won't prevent you from being infected. Now, and this graph isn't showing hospitalizations or death. It's just showing new cases. So
that's a good point.
You see what I'm saying?
Very, very fair point. Very fair point. Absolutely.
So and then to your point about hospitalizations, I just had a conversation before we came on air. There's also a misconception that for every citizen in the United States, there's a hospital bed, and that's not the case. We know that roughly at least 75 million people roughly did not get vaccinated, and they don't necessarily believe in it. So what's happening is the hospitals are being overwhelmed because they're the hospital employees are contracting COVID, and they're having to quarantine. So they're understaffed, and then they're being overwhelmed with the unvaccinated, 90+% in some cases, and which include kids, because our pediatric hospitalization, only 21% of elementary school kids in the U.S. have been vaccinated. It was at 17. We're only up since December to 21%. So there's a lot there before we can totally uncouple if you're going to talk about the entire population. But I want people to just look at volume. If there are only 10 seats in a room and 100 people bum rush the door, you're going to have it's going to overwhelm the system, and your numbers are going to go up.
Yep, and that's definitely something that we are seeing and going to start seeing, I think, because these are lagging indicators. And Eric, I mean, what about the fact that we've got Mardi Gras coming up as well? And that is something of great concern. So here is our Rhode Island. What I thought was Rhode Island before. For some reason, we're seeing a huge rush of cases in the Northeast. Rhode Island in particular particular. You could see this is what it looks like in the Northeast, and you could see the comparison to Rhode Island. And you could see this is a lot redder, this map, redder than it was last a week. Louisiana, at least here, is just super, super hot, super on fire with Orleans and southeast Louisiana having some of the highest rates of cases. This kind of shocked me, Eric. We're approaching in Louisiana almost 1 million cases, which is really quite surprising.
Based on the last 2 weeks I've had, doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. I mean, look at the number of cases we're seeing. Yesterday, we added 12,494.
Wow.
I mean, all deaths are terrible, of course, but the number of deaths are just not commensurate with that, thankfully. But look at this epi curve. I mean, this epi curve is insane. Again, we're seeing these every time. We're seeing kind of, now we've shown you like three. We showed the globe, the country, and the state with all new record cases being shown. It's an incredible amount of cases that we're just seeing. It's just it just never stuns, it never ceases to surprise me. Hospitalizations are going up, of course, as well, and thankfully deaths kind of remain very, very low. And then Louisiana, again, we just saw that we're still in a severe state with only 58% completely vaccinated. You look at Orleans Parish, probably if there's any good news at all, is that it looks like when you look at the cases in Orleans, it looks like we may have peaked. And so that is actually really, really good news.
That's good news.
So,
I'll wait. I'll leave that there.
Our risk level is still severe. Our infection rate is still in exponential growth. Our test positivity rate is still not great in Orleans. But all that being said, I think hopefully we are moving into kind of the right direction. Here we've got let's see, about minutes real quickly. This is through I've been using Flonase before around strangers because of a Cleveland study showing a few years back it was a 25% reduction. I'll sanitize my mask with cheap hydrogen peroxide and breathe through my mouth if I'm temporarily maskless and I can't read the rest of it. So I'd say if I'm maskless around, are you crazy? That's a lot of stuff. I don't do a lot of that stuff. The Flonase nasal steroids. I just wear a mask. I wear KN95 mask. I don't do anything with it.
I'm not going to recommend. People have their things that make them feel safe and comfortable.
Right.
And if that there are some people that take mega doses of vitamin C, mega doses of vitamin C, which is a water soluble that you just kind of urinate. I was going to say pee, but I didn't. See, now you made me say it.
You did there, though.
You made me say it. He made me say it. I'm glad someone's here to witness this, right?
So Johnny asked,
I'm not sure if that's what happened.
Johnny asked about hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and zinc. So those are not, John, those would never kind of scientifically proposed treatments. Hydroxychloroquine, just to remind you, is an antiparasitic medication, so very little any antiviral properties. Azithromycin is an excellent antibacterial, so it's really effective toward bacteria, but zero effectiveness toward viruses, so it has no antiviral property whatsoever. And zinc, so all three of those medications we have talked about a number of times. It showed certainly I would think in the summertime, maybe in the fall, we showed the studies showing that all the clinical trials showed that there was no efficacy in any of those three medications. So with that being said, we have just a couple more, about a minute left. Katie, we'll give any last words to you.
Oh gosh, pressure much? I want to say very laterally, like everyone else was saying. It's a very British thing to say laterally, isn't it? I'm just so glad you guys are back. I know a bunch of people were saying that in the comments. I don't know if anyone else from other parts of the world. I know you get people on the show from other parts of the world. I think it'd be great to hear more stories, because this is manifesting in such locally specific ways. And there's all these kind of like different practices emerging. That's all the cultural stuff, but that's my thing. So I'm always curious about that.
I like that.
What I like about this is you're giving us on the ground stuff too. So the contribution, just like a whole bunch of praise.
Yeah, thank you. And Betty, real quick, I actually got asked this question today on the Sam Cedar show, and the way I answered it was, I think there's a disruption of homeostasis. I think that if there's a homeostatic disruption in immunity, that you're going to get a disruption of homeostasis in the endocrine system as well. Guys, we got to go because we have to be off the air.
So Mark Allen and I will come up with another day, potentially another day this week. Mark Allen.
Thank you. We love you guys.
Oh, did he see? We'll be